You're listening to TFM.
Want to join in the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode? Join the Babel Conference, our listeners' discussion group on Facebook. Just type BABEL into the Facebook search field, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. I'm here to talk to you about the Christmas Initiative, and with me, as he is, every single episode, the one and only John Mills. John, how are you feeling this festive holiday season?
Well, I guess I'm feeling very IP friendly and low budget, but in a high budget sort of way, Christmas specially sort of mood, Matt.
Excellent. I mean, it sounds great.
One set, except for the real locations, something low impact, something you can film in a day or two, knock it out quick, and then use some music that everybody loves. What could,
there you go.
Honestly, it's a production miracle in and of itself in this season of miracles.
Well, we are going to be talking about the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. But before we get there, of course, as you know, find the show anywhere and subscribe wherever you're listening. Of course, that means you get all the episodes as soon as they drop. You can do us a favor and share us out on social media and follow us. We're at the 602 Club on X and at the 602 Club TFM over on Instagram. You'll find us as well over on Facebook, facebook.com/TrekFM with the entire network. And you can also join the Babel Conference, which is our listeners-only discussion group on Facebook, and talk to listeners from all over the world. And if you do like what we do, you can go to Patreon at patreon.com/TrekFM and become part of the team and make sure everything we're doing keeps coming to you. So, John, so this is our second Marvel special presentation.
Nice.
As we're recording this, we actually know that they will not be doing any more Marvel special presentations. As they have decided, because I think really of the not so successful run of Phase 4 and into Phase 5, that too much has been coming out. And so before we even, I think, get into, the actual holiday special itself, with knowing that and with, your response to the first presentation that they did, and just with this now in your mind, is that something where you think they're making maybe possibly a mistake, or do you think it's a good idea to let go of something, like these special presentations and really just find, focus on whatever it is you're trying to build?
No, it's a company board learning the wrong lessons all over again. Because the problem isn't stuff like the holiday special. That's exactly what they should be doing. The problem is taking things that should be movies and turning them into series. Yeah, how many things have we watched where it's like, as a 2-hour movie, this probably would have worked okay. But as a 6 to 8 episode thing, it sucks. And, not sucks. I won't say sucks, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it's not a successful... I mean,
some of them do and some of them don't.
Yeah.
And some of them are mediocre. And so, it's kind of all over the place.
And that's what floods the market. But something like this would be perfect for whetting people's appetite and just sort of like, chumming the waters and getting them excited for the next thing. If you time this right, you have a special like this every so often. It gets people onto the service. It makes people want to be on Disney Plus, and it retains the excitement for the in-theater product that you're looking forward to. And so, no, I think it's completely the wrong lesson. The only lesson they should have come away with in Phase 4 was don't turn everything into a series. Make the movies, then make the money, and then have a one shot like this that is dropped in there, once every 3 months, 6 months, 4, whatever. Plan it out right. It all works fine. You get a Werewolf by Night in there every so often. You get a holiday special in there. That would have worked great for me, because the stuff that fell apart as a series that would have been a good movie, I'm on board for it. Then I'm still looking forward to something. So that's my take on it, at least. I mean, the movies haven't exactly been top notch in Phase 4, but
yeah. I think it's such an interesting question, and not because I asked it, but really just because I can see the arguments from both sides as to why you might feel one way or the other. Why you know the studio might just think, oh, maybe we should just start making less, or but what I really do gravitate towards is what you said, which is really that these are the types of things, these 30, 45 minute, maybe 50-minute specials are good ways of utilizing the Disney Plus app, as well as kind of, like you said, just whetting the appetite for what's going to come next. And in many ways, too, this is something that actually set up what was to come, right? This sets up Guardians of the Galaxy 3. There's a lot here. There's a lot here that they don't have to go and figure out in the film, because they've already done it here. And so, I find that to just be really an interesting thing. And I do really see what you're saying too. It's like it does feel like you're almost learning the wrong lesson, and so it does kind of make me wonder, though, like, what were the streaming numbers behind these? Were they just so low that it wasn't worth the budget, regardless of what it was? So again, these are all things to which we don't actually really have any idea, because they don't share this kind of information with us. There's no transparency in these numbers.
Right.
And so, I think that it is kind of sad, though, that we wouldn't get more of this kind of thing. Because I found, not to spoil it before we even get there, but, I found both of these to be fun romps, and again, it's the kind of thing that you can easily watch quickly. And doing something like this, people tend to return to, holiday themed things every year, right? You turn on your favorite holiday. There are still shows where I watch my favorite holiday episode from that show, regardless of I'm doing a rewatch. I just turn on that episode because so that's where, I think, you are kind of missing out.
Well, this thing is the definition of nostalgia, because the very opening with the Marvel special presentation thing is very reminiscent of what I used to love. Like, everybody loved like the CBS special presentation opening, and and the ABC used to put the CBS one. That was the gold standard of it. Like, like, you got excited when that came on TV. And James Gunn knows what he's doing. He's really having fun with it. And the fact that it plays like the old variety show Christmas specials that would be repeated for 10 to 15 years, where you'd be watching it and you're a kid. And like, I was a kid, I saw plenty of these things where it was like, those clothes haven't been in fashion for a long time, but they would just play the hell out of them every year. And they became a tradition in and of themselves, because like, it just represented that, okay, we're in this season. And, basically this is a variety show, because you have some musical acts with it worked into the story. You have a guest star that's, of repute. And then you have, in this weird fourth wall walk back, because Kevin Bacon is real and Chris Pratt is real. But in this context, Kevin Bacon is real, but Chris Pratt is Star-Lord. So like, it's this weird sort of thing where it really breaks down the artifice of it. And you're like, yeah, we're all just having fun. What the heck?
Well, and let's not forget that Drax's, was it family or somebody was murdered by
Gobot.
Our parents.
His nephew was murdered by Gobot. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So,
which is terrific in and of itself, because I think Marvel published the Transformers comic. I don't know who published the GoBots comic. I'm racking my brain. I don't think Marvel also did the GoBots comic, but obviously they. Well, either way, I'll tell you what, kids. Most people don't remember GoBots, but I do because that was.
Oh, I do. I had some.
Well, that was my Grammy went into Dwayne Reed, and when I went up, during Christmas time, she knew I loved Transformers, and here was a thing that transformed. So here's Cop Tour, and it's like, oh, thanks, Grammy. And your dad's sort of like, yeah, okay. She thinks this is the right thing. You're like, okay, thank you. This is great. But I do have an affection for GoBots, but that's what it is. Like, it's that whole thing, is that whole mix of like variety show plus cheesy location comedy plus guest star in a skit. This has all the trappings of, I'll go ahead and say it, this is exactly what they thought they were going to get away with the Star Wars Holiday Special. Which, of course, legendarily goes horribly wrong. But I look at this. You have a cartoon segment. You have variety acts. Because if you go back to the Star Wars Holiday Special, they're following the same template. And so it's like Guardians of the Galaxy is the alternate universe, the multiverse version of the Star Wars Holiday Special that was actually good, that people wanted to watch again. So, it hits an affection point there too.
And the only lost thing is that, we don't have Itchy's special helmet. But
no, that's not a loss. I wish that thing had never been invented. No.
So I do have a question about this, because, we start off this series. We start off the special with a Rankin Bass inspired animation portion. And as much as I appreciated that, I personally wish that they had used like the claymation stop motion instead, because I think it's more recognizable for those people as the Christmas special than the Rankin Bass type of animation.
Well, I'll give you. Rankin Bass did the claymation stuff, and I think that's a fair point, especially because the gifts at the end that they open that look like the little clay figures, that would have tied nicely in.
Exactly.
I agree with you, and they could have done that with CG easily enough. They didn't need to actually stop motion animate anything. I'll give you that, but the heart of it, and Yondu is easily, by the general public, not by fans, but by the general public, the most overlooked character in the MCU in this sense. That Yondu is a great example of how people are complex, and bad people can have good hearts and good people can have bad hearts and that sort of thing. And I love the little bookends showing we know, and the holiday special here keeps in tune with it, that Yondu was very much a product of his own life and his own failings and all of those sorts of things. But at his core, he actually did love Peter. He just didn't, like a flawed person, he didn't know how to express it. And it was weird to him, and it was confusing, and he didn't know what to do. But when he had those moments alone, he would let his guard down. And that's a very relatable thing. And so while I concede your point, I think that the little story that's told just with those brief animation segments is so perfect and gets to that core of things.
I honestly could not agree with you more. Like I 100% agree with you with the reason that it's there. Right. And I think, the beauty of this is that it comes off of, what we saw in Guardians 2 and the relationship between those two. And, of course, the loss of that character. And then, of course, the loss of Gamora now that's happened with, everything with Endgame and all that jazz. And so it's like these two losses in Peter's life, massive losses, right? And so I think that animated sequence as the bookend is fantastic, and it really adds to the story. Which, I think it's also really interesting here too. And one of the fun things really about the I think the story just for this is the way in which this really does bring together so many little tiny threads from the Guardians films. And even the things that we've had done in the Avengers movies where they've been in them, and I think that the storyline makes this feel so plausible because the choice of using Mantis and Drax, who want to do something good and yet have no understanding of human sensibility, completely screw it all up, right? And to me, that's the part of this that I think Gunn, of course, he knows these characters, he knows the world he's created with the Guardians, and I think he creates kind of the perfect story to make this make sense for the world that he's created with them.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, but I think that the core element here is Pratt, because I think that Gunn has a vision. Gunn knows what he's doing. The whole cast knows what Gunn needs from them. So he's an effective director because he clearly communicates to everybody. Everybody knows what their job is. That's the job of a director. Make sure those actors know what their job is, not just hitting the mark, but what emotion they need to convey, all of those sorts of things. But Pratt is so elemental to this specific thing working because when he's off screen, he's missed. If there is a flaw, it's that we spend a little too much time with Mantis and Drax on Earth. I don't
see that.
think that the humor they're going for is as humorous as they'd hoped when they first start looking for Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, I think that is a great point, I think, because, and I think one of the faults there, and I was reading behind the scenes stuff that Gunn wanted to be able to kind of put them to the forefront because he felt like in places they had kind of been shoved to the side a little bit. I do think what this seems to prove to me is that those two characters are meant to be side players and not main characters. Because, I think by putting them to the forefront, you're also, and I'm guessing too, a lot of this probably has to do with who's available, and all of that kind of stuff. I'm sure, you could get into all that, but, it's hard because a character like, and an actress like Karen Gillan, who is so good. And I know you haven't seen Guardians 3, but she's fantastic in that too. So it's like, I really do feel as though by putting these two characters at the forefront, as you mentioned, not only are you missing Peter, but I think you're missing the other characters like Rocket and stuff like that kind of bring that. In some ways, it's not just the humor, but strangely enough, Rocket actually helped bring in a lot of emotional resonance,
Rocket's the cynic. And the audience needs the cynic with them. And to your point, Drax and Mantis, they are zanier characters. They're sillier characters, which is not a knock against them by any stretch.
Right.
But you need to root characters like that with the old term going back to vaudeville. The straight man needs to be there. Where you have Abbott and Costello only work because one person is the stick in the mud, serious, sardonic person to play against the zanier person. And when you have the zanier people, it works for brief periods of time. So if you had gotten to Kevin Bacon faster, then it's funnier. And that's, I think, since the point of this is to be fun and lighthearted, I think that's the sort of thing. And unfortunately, that is a thing that's difficult with comedy, is finding exactly how long it needs to be. The comedy's supposed to be fast, and it's just not fast enough with them. Again, it's not even me blaming, the actor, the actress for what they're doing. This is fixed in the writing or even the editing phase, where you're like, we can tighten this up. I want to get your thoughts though on Kevin Bacon. Like, was Kevin Bacon the right superstar for them to go get for this? Or was there another 80s icon? I'm not saying there was. I'm asking, do you think Kevin Bacon was the right fit for this special?
I mean, the only one that I think that they might have gone with outside of him would have been like David Hasselhoff. And we've seen David Hasselhoff, I feel like, in a Stinger or something.
Well, he did that song from Guardians too.
Yeah. So, I think Kevin Bacon worked fine. I mean, I think he was. I
agree. I mean, I was legitimately just kicking the question off to you.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything. If there's anything there. I think that, when he says to his wife, and I love Kira Sedgwick actually is a voice cameo. So when she calls, but I think, he says, I need to teach them about the meaning of Christmas. And, I don't think that they're going to do Charlie Brown Christmas, right? But I feel like there's a better way to tell everybody on Nowhere about the meaning of Christmas than singing a song that's not very good. It's a really not great song to explain the meaning of Christmas, and so I think that's the only. Maybe that's one of my main criticisms here. It's not Kevin Bacon. It's the way they have him kind of teach about Christmas. With the song they have him sing, which just doesn't seem to really fit the true meaning of Christmas in any way, shape, or form, in a way that's as visceral and really understandable as some of our most popular Christmas songs that really seem to kind of bring that home.
This is where we'll differ in this sense. I get what you're saying, but with something like a variety special like this, I plug in very much to the idea that you go for the broadest audience possible. If you go back to those old broad holiday specials, I think the song's catchy enough. Kevin Bacon, I actually, at one point in the past, had the pleasure of seeing the Bacon brothers perform live. I've actually seen them in concert. So Kevin Bacon is a legit musician, on top of being an accomplished actor. So, kudos to him and his brother. The song's catchy. It's forgettable. I mean, the only problem with the song is, like, when you're doing a song for a Christmas special, you're expecting unfairly, I underline that word, unfairly expecting a new classic. And what happens is
or at least a good, reinterpretation of a classic.
Kevin Bacon is upstaged by the very funny first song in the special, where Quill is listening to the Aliens play, and we get those great moments of Chris Pratt going, well, no, he doesn't have a flamethrower. Like, he's sitting there bewildered while that song is going on, but that song's incredibly catchy, and it's funny because these aliens don't understand what Christmas is about, and they misinterpret how Santa punishes bad children and everything. It's like, I think the song that Kevin Bacon does is fine. I just think he gets upstaged by the funnier experience of the first song.
Yeah. Well, and again, they're not going to go religious, right? And so that's not what I'm asking for. But I mean, even just I feel like, some of our best, most classic Christmas songs kind of get at a sense of what, people think of as the true meaning of Christmas, family, togetherness, all of that kind of stuff. And this song, just what I'm saying is I don't think it's just not a great song. And it's like I feel like, and this is the other thing, as you're doing this special, Gunn is usually so great at picking music, but this is one of those places where it's just like, and maybe this is a Kevin Bacon original. I don't know. It could possibly be, and I haven't looked it up to check. So that could also be a part of this. But I would just almost rather, like with the Christmas Chronicles, in the prison where they do the song and they really let him just kind of give Kurt Russell his own take on the song, and it makes it his by the way he sings it. I would almost rather that than this, where it's just like the song is kind of a letdown because it's the big moment where it is bringing everybody together, and it doesn't do that musically.
Right. And like I said, the song's fine. It's forgettable and it's upstaged in its own special. So I completely get what you're saying. I think that it's difficult at this point in time to make that kind of song now. The market's just too crowded with absolutely stunningly classic, even modern classics for Christmas music. And, to your point, I probably would have gotten more of a kick out of Kevin Bacon doing a performance of the Kinks' Father Christmas. That would have been funny. But that actually ties into one thing that I think is sort of a letdown with the series, because since we are leaning so heavily into the nostalgic bend, let me ask you, what I'm left with the feeling of is I should have seen some hint of Santa Claus in the background, because that was always a staple of these sorts of things where you heard the ho, 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 or you heard the sleigh bells and somebody turned around and there was another little perfect gift sitting there, sort of thing, where they would always play with that, the idea of Santa Claus showing up because it was a holiday special. Do you think they missed the mark with that? Or do you think I'm just going too sentimentalist with that?
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thought, because I hadn't thought of that, because I was actually really impressed with the special having the nativity scene that Drax and Mantis are kind of looking at. And they just, of course, they don't understand it. So they just have this quizzical look on their face. And so I appreciated that was even in there, because so many times these type of specials just forget that Christmas is actually a holiday, based around a religious birthday, right? Like that's why we celebrate in the first place. And I think that I would have loved actually the idea of possibly having that in there. I think that would have been really fun. I would have really enjoyed that. Some sort of little like taste of Santa somewhere, so
yeah. But overall, I mean, it's like what is fascinating about it is this is in a lot of ways the definition of I'm looking for the right phrase, but part of it is, I guess you could say, like narrative fast food in terms of like a continuity or something like that. There is absolutely nothing necessary about this. There's nothing that is like, oh, you won't get the MCU without it, or this isn't like a Winter Soldier sort of thing. But at the same time, it's disposable, but really well-made disposable. Because this is my second time watching it, and I'm like, I did like this. Like, I was terrified that I was going to watch this and be like, oh, I like this the first time I watched it, and I didn't really like it this time, right? Like, I was terrified it was going to go that way, and it didn't. And to me, while this isn't a new classic, this is something I could very easily have on in the background while I'm wrapping presents or something like that.
Yeah.
I could have that on in the background and watch it.
I think that's really... So rewatching this a second time myself, it was interesting to me that I had a slightly better reaction to it than I did the first time, but it didn't really change where I would go with my star ratings. I guess to give that away. And I do think because there is, when it comes to a holiday type special or a holiday movie or whatever, there's that almost ineffable thing that happens during the ones that become classics. You almost can't even explain.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just there. And it's like, you know it when you see it. And in all honesty, it's more, you know it when you feel it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is just one of those where I don't quite get that feeling that I do with my favorite holiday films or specials that I would need for this to be an instant classic, which I guess leads to a great question, which is, can you think of something that would allow this to have that to happen? Would the music need to be more punchy or something? Would there need to be something about the story? What is it, do you think, that's making it miss that Christmas feeling that just like enlivens your heart to the way we both responded to the Christmas Chronicles?
Honestly, and this is where it's weird, because obviously I like this thing, I gave it away, but what I think would have made this work more is not doing the Kevin Bacon thing and having something wherein Peter construct it how you will, but Peter's trying to rescue Mantis because Mantis is doing something dumb, and he finds out she's doing something dumb because she wants to find the right way. She wants to get him a gift because she knows about Christmas. She's not human, but she wants to celebrate that and tell him at the same time that she's his sister. And then the other half of the special is the rest of the crew getting to him. And then at the end, her saying something like, oh, neither one of us really have a family. And then look around at everybody and Quill say, I have a family and it's you all. And this is the only family I would have ever wanted. And then you could still have the Yondu bookends, and you realize that we all come from families that have their flaws and their shortcomings. And then we find our new family while retaining what might have been special from where we came from. Right. So basically that's a really long-winded way to say that the only way to make this a more meaningful Christmas classic is to get away from the very thing that it was constructed to be, which is a charming throwback to the variety show Christmas special.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, because I think the most poignant moment of the whole thing is when, Mantis and Star-Lord have their conversation at the end. And, it's great.
It's perfectly played.
I think, yeah. Yep. And there's just not enough of that, I think, in the special. So I agree with you. We talked about the Kevin Bacon song, but I have to say, again, Gunn usually chooses music that I think is great. But I didn't understand any of the music choices in here because none of the songs are... and you can tell me in a second, but I think it's like the music that Quill would have known from his mother, any of the Christmas music would have been music from the classics to the stuff you heard in the 70s. So I didn't get it, and it didn't work for me. It was all trash.
Okay, calling Fairy Tale of New York by the Pogues trash is just flat out heresy. That's nonsense. That is like that actually makes me angry that somebody would call that song trash, because it is not
I didn't
trash.
get any of it. I have never heard any of them either, so it meant nothing to me.
That melts my heart. That makes me sad for you, because the music was great, because this is the type of thing where this is in line with the type of music. This is the music tastes that Peter Quill would have had because of his mom. Hands down, easy. And, okay, it didn't work for you. I hear you. Like, music's tricky. It's like me trying to convince you that I just had a great steak, but you didn't like the way that it was cooked. So you're like, I don't think the steak was that great. I'm like, are you crazy? This is the best steak I've ever had. Okay. Like, it sort of gets to that taste thing. So it's sort of like an like, I don't really have a desire to like argue you into enjoying it more, sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's just because I like the songs that he chose, but I like the songs that he chose. So,
well, and I think that obviously, it comes down to that. I mean, you like it, and again, it's not anything really that I've heard, and so.
So wait a minute, you don't know Christmas Rapping by the Waitresses? That's like one of the greatest Christmas songs in history.
Yeah, no.
Oh, come on. Oh, God.
Yeah, and I
want an alien for Christmas?
Yeah.
That's...
Nope.
Really?
Yeah. Why would I have known any of that?
Even the Smashing Pumpkins Christmas Time is great. No, don't you dare.
I just don't think, and I would completely disagree with you, and obviously Gunn would disagree with me too, but that's fine. I just, this doesn't seem like music that Peter Quill would even know, because
no,
gone by the time most of this music was out.
No,
I mean, he wouldn't know the Smashing Pumpkins.
Well, he gets the Zune in Volume 2. Very, thank you very much. But like Christmas rapping, Christmas rapping. That's like a classic 80s song. Like, that is an absolute stone cold classic 80s song. I'm
sure people are just yelling at me. It's fine. But I just, it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I got nothing, man. Because, like, Dead by Xmas is a 1982 song, right? Like, yeah, Christmas Rapping, I'm pretty sure was like 82 as well, sort of thing. Or maybe it was I think it was 82. But they reference 1981 in it. So, like, all of this stuff is right in that. I mean, okay. Yeah. But see, the thing is, it's one thing to say it doesn't work for you in the context of the special, but to like poop on Fairy Tale of New York or Christmas Rapping, like, those are two songs where it's not Christmas season until I hear them, sort of thing. Like, I treasure them and I hold on to them. I've never heard of them.
So, but I'm a very classic person when it comes to Christmas. So.
That blows my mind, because it's like, I don't know how you've made it this far without hearing them. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, running across somebody that's like, oh, I haven't seen Star Wars. It's like, well, I guess those people exist, but sure. Okay. So
yeah,
I'm not passing a value judgment on you.
No, I understand. And I'm not feeling attacked or anything. Like, I'm
doing it wrong.
Where you're coming from, in the sense that, like, you're just like, I can't believe somebody doesn't know what this is, and I've been there before too, and so that makes sense to me. It wasn't.
Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Promise me that after we're done recording, you just go over to Spotify and you stream just two songs: Christmas Rapping and Fairy Tale of New York, just those two. And just listen to them beginning to finish. That's it. That's all I'm asking you to do. And maybe the Grinch's heart will grow 3 sizes that day. I don't know. It's possible.
I mean, my heart when it comes to Christmas is pretty big. I love, my Christmas playlist is very long, because I enjoy a lot of Christmas music. It just, like I said, I'm very classy.
I would also recommend, I think the compilation came out in the 1990s, listening to A Soul Christmas. That's very good. It's got some Booker T and the MGs on doing stuff. Otis Redding stuff. So
I mean, Otis Redding. His White Christmas is fantastic.
There you go. It's on there.
Yeah.
So Christmas wrapping just as good.
So Christmas music argument aside, I guess what would you rate the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special?
It's a solid 3.5. Same thing I gave it before, and the fact that it didn't fall is a huge plus in its favor. I still think the Drax and Mantis stuff, too much time on it. Joke takes too long to get to the punchline, but made up for by a legitimately heartfelt moment with Quill and Mantis. Really funny opening, and I think that the moment where Chris Pratt's face falls from sheer childlike joy to dawning horror as he realizes there is a person in a box in front of him is there are phrases people throw around where they're like, oh, screen presence. Oh, they know how to convey emotion. He does it. You actually see his brain working, going from just, oh, this is the most special moment, and oh no, there's a person in a box. And then like his reaction afterward where he's like, this isn't a present, this is human trafficking. Like, it's a great moment. And it's like that in and of itself is great. Makes it worth the watch. So 3.5 stars from me. What about you?
I'm in the same place, man. It's 3.5. I mean, it's good. It's solid. It's fun. It's definitely not something that's made the rotation for every holiday. But I mean, it's enjoyable. And that's really all you could ask for from this. And I think, honestly, Gunn does a pretty good job of subtly working in things that'll help you enjoy Guardians of the Galaxy 3 without pounding you over the head with it, right? I think that's great. And so, and a real testament to the way he works, right? It just feels so natural that everything's happening here, and you're not thinking, oh, I bet this connects to this and this and this. It just feels like, oh, this is the story, and honestly, the MCU could learn something from that. And, maybe that means there's some kind of hope for the DC universe. Who knows with that sensibility. But that's a whole other podcast. John, what are your rankings now for the MCU?
Now, I want to be very clear that there is an unfairness factor here with where Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special is going to end up. I'm going to be very clear about that. Because it's 45 minutes, it makes it very snackable. And because it's very snackable, it winds up artificially inflating its placement in the list. Because of the fact that it is something where I might not be in the mood for a 2.5-hour movie with 6 stingers and all that stuff, no matter how good it is. I might not be in the mood for it. But if it's the right season and I'm like, yeah, it's got it's 45 minutes and I don't have to pay the closest attention to it, it's going to artificially inflate it. So try not to hate me, everybody, because, it is what it is. So, and again, prefacing everything with the fact that naturally the list doesn't include What If because it's not on Letterboxd and I forget where I put it. So, I can live with that. All right. So, all that preamble done. Sorry, everybody, for the preamble. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3, Spider-Man, No Way Home, Ant-Man, Werewolf by Night, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Iron Man, Avengers Endgame, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, Hawkeye, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, Loki, Civil War, First Avenger, Miss Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, The Incredible Hulk, Avengers Infinity War, Thor, Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers, Howard the Duck, Moon Knight, WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Spider-Man Far From Home, Thor, The Dark World, Iron Man 2, Wakanda Forever, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Age of Ultron, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Black Widow, Captain Marvel, Thor Love and Thunder, and Eternals. That's my list.
Well, for me, it is Captain America Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3, No Way Home, Endgame, Civil War, The First Avenger, Black Panther, Guardians 2, Ant-Man, Hawkeye, What If, Doctor Strange, Shang-Chi, The Incredible Hulk, Werewolf by Night, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Multiverse of Madness, Homecoming, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Loki, Avengers, Miss Marvel, The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, Far From Home, Infinity War, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, The Dark World, Iron Man 2, Thor, Howard the Duck, Wakanda Forever, Moon Knight, Black Widow, Age of Ultron, Captain Marvel, WandaVision, She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Ragnarok, Love and Thunder, and of course, Eternals.
There you go.
Well, folks, we don't know if we'll be back. We're not sure. It's been quite a long road for us to actually just get here.
Yes.
It's honestly been, rough. And so maybe we'll see. But if you have any thoughts or you'd like us to come back, catch up with us. And John, if people wanted to catch up with you, where would they find you?
Look for me online as Kessel Junkie, KESSELJUNKIE, and you can find me on the Nerd Party Network, co-hosting 2 shows. The first is called House Lights, where we look at the work of directors through different lenses. Get what I did there? And I co-host that with Tristan Riddell and Darren Moser. And you can find me over there as well, co-hosting Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast with one Mr. Matthew Rushing.
And you can find me all over the place on social media under the name Matt Rushing02. You can also find me here on the network outside the 602 Club with Literary Treks, Warp 5, Artificial Tango, The Orb, and Saddle Up. And then over on the Nerd Party Network, when I wasn't doing Aggressive Negotiations, you can find me on Owl Post with Drea Kaufman as we talk about every single chapter of the Harry Potter series, one chapter at a time. But thank you so much for joining us.
Christmas trees, assemble.